Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Money Mentor podcast. My name's Graeme Home, Australia's original money mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning's guest is a part one of a two-part series, Mr. Tobi Pearce. Now, Tobi Pearce is the co-founder and former CEO of Sweat, one of the world's largest content subscription apps within the health and fitness industry. As CEO, Tobi leveraged deep knowledge in business strategy, marketing, and technology to build a community of more than 50 million inspirational women in more than 155 countries. And after having bootstrapped the company for 5 years, led the team to a 9-figure exit. That's right, a 9-figure exit. On the journey, Tobi was recognized by EY as an award winner within the Entrepreneur of the Year program. Also, in Daily's 40 Under 40 as one of the fit tech industry's top entrepreneurs, with his enterprising leadership and a proven eye for innovation and disruptive thinking. He also received the Inspiring Disruptor Award, as well as many other business accolades in the Australian business community. Since his exit from Sweat, he's been working with his other co-founded organisations and businesses and startups, predominantly within the licensing industry. Having already guided the company through 2 successful fundraising rounds, he's now preparing for an international growth phase. Alongside this work, Tobi plays a key role to many founders in the advisory and mentoring capacity for a variety of different businesses and industries, including but not limited to property, mining, legal, tech, retail, e-commerce, and the list goes on and on. In his downtime, Tobi enjoys spending quality time with his partner Rachel and his beautiful 4-year-old daughter Anna. He also loves perfecting new pieces on the piano after over 25 years of study, and loves to not just practice, but he's pretty bloody good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm definitely not going to get in a grapple with him today. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing and inspirational Tobi Pearce. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it, so here we are again with Mr. Tobi Pearce. Thank you, and we might just preface this with, this isn't an ad for Optimum Nutrition unless they want to contact us and there's some sort of trailing income but we are both obsessed with aminos, so it's not an ad. But just to get that out of the way, because I'm going to go, what are they both drinking? So, and sorry, mate, we didn't have watermelon today, but next time, definitely not an ad. So Tobi, thanks for joining us again. Man, we wanted to, or the audience wanted to, one, get you in, which we appreciate. Yeah. But two, they wanted to pick your brain a lot around the business side, even employees or investing in business. But I guess a couple of things we wanted to dig into today deeper. We've talked recently about building and the process there, and what do you listen to, and this, that, the other, and it depends, and all that sort of jazz, which will rattle a lot of people's brain. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to, I guess, specifically today get into a couple of dot points. I won't start with the first one is, should all business owners exit, or should they think about it? You need to have a goal, but there's those steps we talked about in between, but not everyone's going to sell their business. Yeah. Not everyone should, I think, but should everyone be thinking towards that? Yeah. Or what are they actually doing? Did they just buy a job?
Yeah. So, so if the question was only, should every company exit? The answer is no. Yeah. And more often than not, it's a bad idea. Yeah. And also, even just because a company did exit doesn't mean it was a good one. Yep. Right. So, to add some dimensions to that, I'd probably go so far as to say, perhaps a more nuanced question would be, under what criteria should a business exit?
Yeah, well, and even go back a step, when you go back on your journey, everyone that's tuned in and they're listening at home, guys, if you're listening, when you started out and you went, went into PT, you weren't thinking of selling something straight away when you're on the PT floor at 4 or 5 in the morning. Right?
I don't even know I didn't even know what that meant. I never could. Until quite a lot later.
So prefacing what we're talking about here by, we don't even know what it is most of the time until you engage with someone or hear someone that has.
Yep. Yeah. And so, just to kind of ramble through, some headlines, right? Like, why are most people in business? Well, normally it's a combination of impact. They want to provide impact or have impact on people positively, and / or they want to make money. Like really, and you can argue and debate that, as much as you like, but really it's like you're either here because you want to do something that's good.
Yeah. Or you want to make money. Or combination of the two.
Yeah. And whatever, right? It is what it is.
Yep.
And so, if that's true, as you start to enter the realm of what's the long-term goal? A lot of people will genericize to, I want to exit. And if you wanted to know why, well, it's like, well, because most people consume media. And what does media sensationalize? It sensationalizes and it adds a huge amount of like status and influence to XYZ sold business for ABC.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, there's no relationship between that and whether it was a good idea or not. So if you were to then ask the question more like, under what criteria would it be a good idea? Right. There's a lot of variables to consider here, but normally the headline ones are basically how do you financially determine if it's a good idea? And then how would you determine if it's the right decision for your lifestyle? Right. There's other variables, but they're really, kind of the headlines. Right. And so when we look at that, like a lot of people will often go like, you can kind of have a lifestyle business or you can kind of like build an asset to sell or leverage. Right. And what they really mean by that is like a lifestyle business is normally something that they build, it makes profit, and then they can kind of never work in it again.
Yep.
Right.
Temporarily retired.
Whatever. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's a lot of people think there's that, and there's kind of like saying that you can build up and sell, and I think the two are incredibly divergent. I would argue that they're almost identical.
Okay.
Right. And the reason is simple. So if you are building a lifestyle asset, you want something that it generates profit, has a good earnings profile. It's has some sort of sound governance and compliance, so that it doesn't need all of your time all the time. Right. So in other words, it's kind of an individual organism. It lives and breathes. Yeah. Right. Lots of other things, but let's just call it that. Right. If you're going to build a business to exit, well, what does it need to look like? It probably needs to have some worth, which normally comes off the back of making money and profit. And you probably kind of want it to operate independently. Why? Well, because if you sell it, you don't want to get golden haircuts. Yeah. You do not want to be locked in for 3, 4, 5 years, which is incredibly common. Yeah. So yes, there's other variables, and yes, I'm creating a simplistic example. However, at the end of the day, you want to build a good business that can operate well with or without you. Yeah. If you decide to leave.
And let's be honest, I think everyone sets out in business. They don't want to work for somebody else. Yep. They want to work-life balance till they're doing the books at 10 o'clock at night and taking a call on a weekend. But we start out that way, or solving a problem that we're really passionate about.
Yeah, and there's a super famous quote that goes, all entrepreneurs say, why would I be in the rat race and work 9 to 5 when I can work 5 to 9? Right? And like obviously that's a bit pun, right? Because that's pretty much the reality for most business owners. You actually end up working more than you would if you were in your kind of regular employment, but it does give you a sense of freedom and control over your life, which is different. Anyway, coming back to the exit thing, right? If your goal, the criteria are that you need to build it to be like independently operating and or kind of making some decent money. Well, there you go. Okay, well then, how would you differentiate between the two in terms of goals? So coming back to the initial question, like, should everyone exit? Well, the answer is no. And the extension of the answer being no, the reason why is that because not every exit deal that is available, right? Because remember, you can't just exit whenever you want. You have to have a buyer. Correct. To a house or a car or whatever else. Yep. The deal that is available for you when you ultimately do decide to sell has to satisfy criteria that would commercially and maybe with your lifestyle articulate a proposition that would be substantially better than holding the asset for some time.
Correct.
So if in your hypothetical scenario where you're not working in the business, you have a CEO or a GM or an ND who's kind of running the business for you, then the maths actually becomes quite simple because your lifestyle is kind of good either way, right? So the maths would be very simple. It's like, well, maybe I'm going to sell this business. It's worth $10. So I'll sell it, right? But you might go, maybe it makes $3 a year. Yeah. So if you held it for 3.5 years, you'd have made the same money. Yeah. So most
and had the same lifestyle.
Correct. So then most people would say, well, then that's not a great idea. So like, again, this is a quite simplistic view, but generally speaking, like this is a really good way to think about it. Yeah. Right? Because how many years would you have to hold the business for to have money where you would therefore deem it as, well, it's better to get the money today? Yeah. Because as you kind of consider what does the exit actually look like, well, just, for a headline, if you sell a company for $100, you're not getting $100.
Yeah. Well, right. People don't think about it. It's like saying, I want to earn magic number. I want to earn $1 million. Well, what's your tax position? What's your cost?
Yeah. So like, they'll plan to live their life based on $100 and let's just super simplistically, let's run the maths, right? So firstly, most deals are broken up into 3 types of consideration or payment. Yep. The first being, upfront, immediate cash. The second being delayed, and the third being contingent. Right?
And let's be clear, not a lot of them are cash.
No.
So if you're playing along at home, most deals are not cash.
So let's just do it as if the numbers are evenly distributed, 33% each. Right?
Sure.
$100, 33 is cash on signing the contract and getting the deal done. 33 is delayed maybe by 2 years, and the other 33 is dependent on performance. Let's just pretend that that's normal, right? Okay, so if you sell for $100, right? Let's only make our decisions based on things that are guaranteed to happen. Well, the only thing that is guaranteed to happen is the money that you get paid on day one.
Correct.
Right? Because the business could die, maybe the rest of the money never comes. Right?
Political, economical, market, who knows?
Because after that point, it's no longer your baby. You don't get to control it. So you don't get 100, you get 33.
Yep.
And just to be clear, you don't get 33 either.
No.
Because normally you're going to pay about, depending on where you are in the world, but if we use Australian tax legislation, provided just some very basic boxes ticked, held it for more than a year, it's kind of personally or beneficially held, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to pay at minimum 25% CGT, capital gains tax, right? So then you're going to pay a few percentage on deal fees. Let's call it 5%, right?
Yep.
So really it's a 30% reduction, right? So if you're getting 33, well, and you're losing 11.
Yep.
So you get 22. So it's not 100, it's 22. And that's not the rule for everybody, just to be clear. There's lots of
it's just a bit of a baseline. Yeah.
But we want to do deals and think about deals the way that they normally get done.
Correct.
Right? So then even if you double up on that, maybe you get 66 because you get the upfront and you get the delayed money, right? That's great. But then that's not 100. Yeah. And then you're still going to lose a third of that. So it's not 66, it's 44.
Yep.
Right. And so, the numbers start to, kind of play out.
And when you actually analyze those numbers, sometimes it's better to keep it.
Well, but this is the thing. So if you were going to sell it for 100, but it's making 20 every year, or in the first scenario, you're getting 22 up front for effectively.
Could just wait the year.
You would be 10 times out of 10, you would be better off holding it. Even if you don't like it, you're better off holding it, right?
You're actually going to like it less if you got rid of it when you could have just kept that recurring income.
Yes. So then the second scenario, you get the initial consideration, the delayed consideration. Well, then you go, okay, well, that's 44 after, kind of tax and fees. All right, well, that's 2 years of earnings. So you'd be better to hold it. Because not to mention that, you have the asset and you have the earnings.
Correct.
Right, and then you have the freedom and flexibility. So all of a sudden, the answer becomes quite quickly, well, definitely no. You should not always do the deal.
And this actually leads into a next question for people that I get asked every day. We've got so many self-employed clients business.
Yeah.
If for some reason potential exit's on the table, or you've had somebody come along and knock on the door and you got a phenomenal bit, however it's occurred, right? Whatever the circumstances are. Okay, if that's the case, then should an exit be meticulously planned? Because, and this is a really important one, because if you are thinking about it from my perspective, if somebody knocks on the door and offers you a bag of cash and it's 10 times earnings net of CGT, and maybe you consider it, right?
Yep.
But if somebody's offering you, when you look at it and as you've done properly and break it down to your net return, sometimes it's not more than a 2 or 3 or 4 times multiplier.
No.
Which you could have got, net, you would have got anyway in the next few years.
Yeah, and so this is an important thing, right? So if you break all exit transactions down into 2 groups, one is proactive and one is reactive.
Yep.
Right? So for the reactive ones, someone's reached out to you, right? Well, you're not going to be able to plan that.
Yeah.
Right? So the reality is that in that particular circumstance, the only, kind of responsibility and need that you have is to, as quickly as is reasonably possible, figure out, is it a good deal or not?
Yeah.
Regardless of anything else, is this a good deal? Right? Yeah, based on some of the term and considerations we mentioned, maybe plus and minus a few other things. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if it's a planned one, my view of the world is that it should absolutely be meticulously planned. And the reason for that is because you need to remember, you need to understand what the business model is of people who are in M&A.
Yeah.
Right. And who are investing in general. Right. There's one overarching principle, and I refer to this as the asymmetric return principle, which is basically find ways of setting up asymmetric deals, buy low, sell high. Right. Or minimize downside, maximize upside. Right. And that's pretty much what investment banking and M&A is all about. Right. So if you think about it this way, hey, we'd love to buy your business. Yep, cool. We're discussing it. Great. Yeah, about $100. Term sheet, sign. Cool. Let's get into long form docs. And off you go. So you start doing a proper negotiation.
Yeah.
Oh, we've realized you got some concentration in customers here that we're not sure about. 90.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we can see that you've got a couple of other risk issues here. Maybe we want to put you on risk for that. So we're going to increase the escrow. Yeah. Fees on hold while the deal is being done.
Yeah.
Cool. So now we're at 80. We're a bit concerned about management. We don't really rate the rest of the team. You're going to be in here for 3 years.
Golden handcuffs.
Yeah, cool.
Then they start adding contingencies, which you're never going to get in some cases. So you don't control the baby anymore.
Correct.
Before you know it, it's like 30 of what you initially started.
Correct, right? And so the reality is that, all of a sudden these things come down. So if you're proactively exiting, then, where you can and you have the skill set and all the networks to do so, you should absolutely meticulously plan it, because you want to begin your negotiation from the strongest point possible, which in the strongest point possible normally includes things like, general risks have been identified. So privacy data, cyber compliance, et cetera, right? Financial performance has been incredibly well articulated and understood. And you have a strong reason to believe that it'll be there in the future. So they can't, hack away at it. Where possible, you have key man risk produced, ultimately either A, done, or B, you have succession planning to do that, because then that reduces their key person risk in the investment process. And a couple other things like that, right? So, and the reason for doing the planning is, one thing and one thing only, which is ultimately the goal of doing all of this, which is to increase the probability that you get a good deal. Right? And then if you extend that, it's actually get a deal done. Because
get offered a good deal, settle a good deal.
A huge amount of times people will get a deal on the table and it will fall through. And obviously this is not published.
Correct.
You never hear about this, right? You only hear about, a deal happened, or blah, something exploded and died. You don't hear about a lot of the in-between stuff. And even for, me on the sweat journey, like we went through a deal that failed. Like literally 36 hours before the money was meant to hit the bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
So I commonly refer to this as an incredibly good character building exercise.
That's a polite way of putting it. Yeah. We won't talk about the character that occurred behind closed doors when that call happened.
That was not great.
No.
So these things happen a lot. Deals blow up a lot. And, the important thing to understand is that, so firstly, everyone in the deal is emotional, not just you, right? So the buyer is emotional, the bankers are emotional, and let's look at why that is. Because if the buyer really wants to buy you for whatever reason, right? But they have to get a good deal, and they have to be able to go back to their shareholders or board or whatever and say it was a good deal. So they're worried about their own integrity,
of course,
and the success of the deal. Then they would normally have a banker, and you would normally have a banker, and that's kind of like a buying and selling agent in real estate. It's basically the same thing. So the buyer's agent doesn't get paid unless they buy. The seller's agent doesn't get paid unless they sell.
But everyone's done the work,
right? Totally. So the reality is that you're emotional because you want to get the money in the exit, and for whatever reasons, but you have your reasons. Right? Then your banker is emotional because they don't get paid unless something happens. Their banker is emotional for the same reason, and they're emotional for their own own reasons, right? The only people who are probably not really that emotional are people that kind of sit as intermediaries that are rate based. So lawyers, corporate finance. These guys, I'm just going to do the work for you.
You're going to pay me regardless.
You want me to do like due diligence in your business. Cool, it's like $500,000. I'm getting paid either way. They're not emotional.
They're like T-Rexes. They've got short arms and deep pockets.
it makes no difference to them whether it happens or not.
Hourly rate or project rate.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a huge amount of emotion, like sort of tied up in the process. And a lot of the time there's a fair bit of like chest beating as well about kind of who's in control and who's not. There's this really fascinating power dynamic, that normally the buyer, and again, depending on who you're dealing with, normally the buyer wants to beat the chest because beating the chest enhances their position of power so they can kind of negotiate to get what they want. And it sounds so silly, but that happens a lot. And then, then the seller can't completely fold because if they do, they have no position upon which to negotiate. So then they have to have at least some degree of chest beating.
Correct.
And then so it ends up becoming a chest beating contest. And then the bankers are like, how do we emotionally manage it?
It's a game of chess.
Absolutely.
Can't beat too hard. Can't give in too soft. Can't show the next move.
So it's a little bit like speed dating, but incredibly expensive. Right. So you got to like show your best self, but then like not completely,
too much.
Too passive.
Like not burp on the first date, like maybe wait till you close the door.
It depends where you're doing the speed dating. I think. But yes, simplistically,
Okay. So ideally, if it's a planned exit, you want it to be meticulously planned. But what do you think even if it is well planned, besides someone knocking on the door and saying you got a great business, I want it. What do you, and you've experienced this obviously, so maybe you know some really good ones, but we won't talk about them today publicly. But what do you think are some very simple oversights? Like people, they don't engage the right bankers, the right DD team, what are some really key areas that people can just drop the ball? Like, is it risk or is it this or where do you think it's pretty common from what you've seen in the market?
So one of the
What do the M&A guys commonly look for? Because they know people fuck it up.
Yeah. So I think like from a founder's perspective, one of the overarching things, and this is a great principle in general in business, but getting a deal done is about and not or. And what I mean by that is like you have to run the business and get the deal done. Because if by trying to get the deal done, you destroy the business, no deal.
Good one.
Right.
So if your whole focus shifts to getting the deal done,
yes,
the business falls apart during, and DD is not like 3 days.
No. A lot of the time, a quick deal would be 3 or 4 months. And that would be 3 or 4 months of like hell.
Yeah.
Like all day, every day, like eyes open, eyes shut type thing. It's incredibly, and that's if you're operating in the same time zone.
Yeah, true.
Right?
True.
So, and often you're not doing large, kind of multinational deals. It's an and not or situation, which comes back to the whole kind of remove key person risk and get yourself set up to be independently operating kind of before, if you can. That's the ideal scenario. I think the second one probably is set your expectations about the deal low. And when I say low, set them at 0.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because the oversight, everyone goes and gets the business valued by some valuer, and the valuer has no accountability. I think your business is worth this. Then you get an offer that's at that or less, and then it negotiates to less and less and less and less. And then that ends up being incredibly demotivating for you.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, even if you do end up getting some remnants of a somewhat decent deal, for whatever reason, if it falls through, that will be heart-wrenching.
Yeah, true.
Right. And I know from first-hand experience.
Yeah.
I dedicated nearly 12 months straight, to try to get a deal done. And it's
soul destroying,
torturous. Yeah. And then obviously to not have that and then have to somehow get motivated.
I was going to say, how do you pick yourself up from that?
Yeah.
Because there's people out there now that have got a deal on the go and they've asked, that's why a lot of our audience, we really want to hear from someone who's been through this. How do you pick yourself up from that and go, right, off we go?
So coming back to the whole set your expectations low and low is 0, right? To paint the picture here. So we had been growing the business, doing quite well. The whole team knew that we were doing a deal.
Yeah.
And the deal was part money in, part money out. So we're raising money and being bought sort of at the same time, partly. So of course, we're right on the cusp of getting that deal done. So we hire another 20 or 30 people. We start revving the engines, getting all this stuff going, et cetera, et cetera. Told everyone the deal was done because it was signed.
Yeah.
And then during calling off, bang. Right. So, the lesson for anyone listening to that and for me at the time was, well, okay, nothing's done until it's done.
Yeah.
And done does not mean signed.
No.
It means done.
Cash at bank.
Cash in bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so, for me, this happened about 20 days before COVID happened.
Wow.
So we'd kind of ballooned in employees, expecting the money. It didn't.
So your FTE's high, you've resourced up for the next growth phase.
And so this was coming back to the whole character building thing. There was a lot of character build.
I bet.
Because then
I shouldn't laugh about it because it's some pretty deep dark
now.
Yeah. It was not. You can live to tell the tale. It wasn't hilarious at the time.
Yeah. And so you having to let people go and this and that. The other. The great learning was that ultimately don't set anyone else's expectations above 0. Right, because that's bad. In terms of other I think oversights, getting good people as in your external advisors is an obvious one, but not ones who are just I would almost sacrifice a little bit of competence for a bit more integrity.
Interesting.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is if you get people that are high integrity, you have people who are looking out for you, not for the deal.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
And so I won't say who and what because it would potentially put them at risk, but we had a particular advisor in a particular area at a particular time.
Yep.
Who regularly would say to me, he's like, my intent here is to get a good outcome for you.
Yeah.
If a good outcome is no outcome, then I would prefer that.
Okay. That's important.
Yeah. And so there's not many people that would do and say things like that and then actually continue to uphold it. But where possible, they are the sort of people that you want to be surrounded by, because you need to remember most other people will operate I'm a professional service provider. I have KPIs and targets that if I don't hit, I don't get partner, or I don't get this, or I don't get that. So everyone's incentives are not actually aligned to yours. So where you can try to find those people.
Do you think that's a key fundamental then of a successful exit or sometimes non-exit? And in your business as well, does that relate to the day-to-day of sometimes take the people with the integrity over the competent? You can have the most competent employee in the world.
Yep.
But if they lack integrity.
Yeah, if you're a high performing arsehole, you're still an arsehole when you don't work in it.
Love it.
At the end of the day, I would rather work with people that have a little bit more development needed that are incredibly open to change, incredibly high integrity,
And want to go on that growth journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, like ideally, you still need both.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, because you can't have
Less assholes, but yeah.
you can't have a whole bunch of nice people that know nothing. Right. And again, I'm deliberately creating extreme bounds here just
Of course.
for illustrative purposes, right?
Yep.
The world is very uncommonly like that. But yeah, I think the integrity piece is a huge part for your advisors, especially through a process like this, because like I said before, it's going to drain resources and money from the company. You want it over as quickly as possible. Good or bad outcome. Good or bad is kind of deal or no deal, however you want to perceive the situation, right? Because a lot of people get really emotionally bought into that, coming back to the world sensationalizes an exit and that has a lot of status and this and that, the other with it. But I'd rather have a good experience and a good business and a good life than an exit. Yeah. A lot of people kind of get very clouded. So, coming back to the whole, what do people overlook? They really overlook that simple principle, right? Try to get something that's good for you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily always mean exiting.
There you go. Good one. Now, also, what advice would you give for people, phrase it the right way, post-exit? So say somebody does successfully exit, whatever success looks like to them.
Yep.
And we talked earlier in the other episode about temporarily retire.
Yep. Yeah.
Most people that can achieve a successful exit aren't going to stop, drop and roll, What advice would you give those people having gone through almost completed exit that's pulled the pin, then completed an exit? What advice do you? Some people get a bit lost. People I've known successfully done really well. They do struggle. What advice would you give for the people post-exit? Because everyone thinks rainbows, lollipops and unicorns. I'm going to retire. I'm going to live on a beach and I'm going to, drink daiquiris all day.
Yeah, I've not met anyone that did that. So
no. And that is neither have I, but everyone talks about it, right?
It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
How many days did you go on the beach? 3? 2?
Yeah, not even. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably look at this and kind of say that depending on the way that you see the world, obviously, of course, but it's very common that people will experience what you could almost define as seller's remorse, right? And what I mean by that is it's not that you necessarily reject or resent, the process of selling the company. Normally you have more money in your bank account than you've ever seen personally.
Yep.
Right. And again, a lot of people from the outside would simplify and say, yes, we.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a whole bunch of interesting things. And so I'll just highlight a couple that I experienced.
Yeah.
Right. So, you're the guy that, at 28 years old, sold his company for $10.
Yeah.
And you're awesome and CEO, bro, et cetera, et cetera, right? And then bang, overnight, no, you're not anymore. You're not the CEO. You don't own a company.
Yeah.
You don't work there.
Yeah.
You don't do any of that now. So that's not you. You're the guy that did.
So it's a bit of who are you?
It's an identity crisis.
Yeah.
An identity crisis.
Of your baby that you've built, blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah. And I think that's something that not a lot of people understand. And sure, they might think it's a positive thing. And I thought mine was a positive thing, but holy, that was a bit of a, I was looking right and then from the left, it's a very, very big shock. Then the extension from that is that you realize there's a whole bunch of stuff that you loved about being in it that you didn't realize. So my example of this was sold the company, got the money on the Friday, had the weekend, I had just moved into a new house because it had been moving. And Monday morning, wake up, gone on my breakfast at my normal cafe, go home, house is empty because I got no furniture yet.
Yeah.
So 9:30, 10:30 a.m. And I'm like, cool. So what the hell do I do with my life now? I was like, funnily enough, I kind of miss actually talking to some of those people. And shit, we had a really good team. Yeah, we had really good people. And I don't really get to see them anymore. And actually, probably didn't realize they were actually some really good friends of mine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And that was pretty stressful, but there's actually a lot of joy there that I got.
So now there's a lot of loss associated with the exit.
Yeah. So, and it is literally is a loss. So it's not at all uncommon that you feel a lot of sadness and loneliness and frustration afterwards. And again, a lot of the world will go, oh, well, it was me.
Yeah.
You just made
look at your bank account. Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what? Sadness is still sadness.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank or what you're doing. And so you end up going through this journey of for a lot of people, and definitely for me, my purpose was, to win in that business. Add a huge amount of value to women all over the world, on their fitness journeys, and try to, financially have some success on the way through.
Yeah.
And, objectively achieved a huge amount of, both of those things.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate to have the success. But then once you're on the outside of that, it's well, why are you here now? What are you doing? What's the intellectual challenge that you show up for every day, and what's your purpose, and what goal are you working towards that feels a little bit unachievable, that's like stimulating.
Does it become a bit of an identity crisis?
Absolutely. Yep. So it's a loss. Yeah, it's an identity crisis. And it's literally like, you ever see those kids who like finish school, I don't know what I want to study.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to do in my life. I don't want to do in my career. It's basically that.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's incredibly different. Yeah. And again, like a lot of things that you didn't necessarily understand at the time become incredibly obvious after. All hindsight bias is perfect, right? Your hindsight vision is perfect. So don't get me wrong. I think exits can be really great experiences for a lot of people. And even for me, like, I'm incredibly proud and incredibly grateful of the experience that I was able to have. But that doesn't mean that there was no difficulty. There's still a huge amount of difficulty with that on the other side. Even to this day now, like I love business almost more than I love anything else, other than my partner and my daughter, right? And it's truly an intellectual pursuit for me. Like this is literally why I'm here in life. This is what I'm meant to do.
Love it.
And I have been like hunting 24 hours a day almost for the last year or so, trying to figure out, what's the next big passion? I don't care if it's big, small, or otherwise. I just like something that's just going to like consume me.
Yeah. And you can be the best at it, right?
Correct. Yeah. I want to rev.
If it's a business and you're going to go and help acquire it or part, you want it to be the best business.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to do like mediocre. I want to go to be the best. And that doesn't mean bigger. It just means best, right? However you choose to measure that.
Massive takeaway from not biggest, but best.
Yeah, best. And that's like the whole pride and integrity thing again. It's like wanting to be good and wanting to improve and wanting to progress, right? You're setting high standards for yourself and holding yourself accountable to that. Like doing something big doesn't mean good. If anything, there's a lot of big that's not actually good at all.
So sometimes the value can diminish at scale.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Well, I think that's nailed it for everyone. Tobi, it's a pleasure as always, mate. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.
And if you're not following Tobi on socials, go and check him out. He's an abundance of knowledge. You're missing out if you're not. So pleasure.
Yeah, thanks,
mate.
Having me, mate.
Cheers.
Cheers.